All right, Dustin Ingle. Good afternoon, man. Appreciate you joining. I know we were just talking pre-roll about your experience or your newness, I guess, to the franchising space, at least with your current business. My complete newness to the franchising space with Junk Raider. So it's good to connect with you, Chad. Hopefully, the audience gets some value out of this, even outside of the franchise world, just small business operations, scaling it, things to avoid. And so, again, appreciate you being on, but without further ado, I'll turn it over to you to do a quick intro, and then we'll get into your business and all things franchise.
Yeah, Davis, I appreciate you inviting me to be on. It's always good to be on, somebody else on the same side of the coin launching a franchise. It's we can relate to each other, so I'm sure it'll be a good conversation. I'm the CEO of Insulation Commandos. We're in an installation business, obviously, franchisor. We just franchised back in August. So like we were saying, we launched about the same time.
Yeah. And so what's the business? Take us a little bit further, Dustin, just into the business and what it is that you do, right? Because I'm a homeowner, but I'm sure there's things that you do and don't do within Insulation Commandos that I probably, as the average homeowner, would or would not know. So talk to us just a little bit about the actual tasks that you guys are doing on site.
Yeah, man. So our niche is retrofit installation. So we're doing mostly existing homes, typically 15, 20, 30-year-old homes. That's kind of our sweet spot. The Energy Star says 90% of the homes in the U.S. are under insulated. The new construction market has kind of slowed a little bit with interest rates. There's been a rise on our side, but that's kind of our niche, man, is existing homes, whereas most of our competitors, they're more focused on new construction. They're plugged in with builders, developers, and they're doing a lot of volume. But with builders, it's usually the lowest bidders getting those jobs, right? So with us, we're typically not the cheapest guy in town. So our focus is retrofit. So we do a lot of attic work. I'd say probably 90% of what we do is in an attic.
It's interesting because are you familiar with Moxie Pest Control?
No. Is that a franchise?
I think so, but they, when you move into a new home, if you've ever moved into a new home, I'm sure you've probably experienced just the influx of people that start knocking on your door and leaving door hangers of they downloaded a list and you're new to the home, new to the neighborhood. But they somehow sold me on pest control, a quarterly maintenance plan. Like they come out 4 times a year, spray the exterior of the home, whatever. Well, long story short, they get you into a sequence of okay, we sold you on this. Now we're going to try to upsell you. And one of the things was, can we get somebody on site to just evaluate your insulation, like your attic space, your crawl space? And I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. If it doesn't cost me anything, come on site and tell me everything that's wrong with the house. So they came out. And so it sounds like you would do what they suggested I need to do. But obviously you guys focus specifically on insulation. Moxie Pest Control is a pest control company. So I'm curious if they won that business, if they'd sub it out. But they came in and the offer was basically $9,000. We'll come in and basically update all of your insulation. And the guy was, throwing around terms that I had no clue about, right? I don't know anything about, how you measure the insulation and whatnot. Yeah. And I was like, as a homeowner, I think I did the natural thing was I looked at the $9,000 and I was like, okay, $9,000. If he reduces my heating and air bill by $100 a month, I don't even know what the average is, but I'm just going to throw out numbers to see if I can figure this thing out. Well, it's going to take me, 5 years to recoup the $9,000 that I just spent to retrofit the attic. So do you run into that type of conversation with homeowners often, not often? And if you do, how do you speak to that? How do you get them comfortable with saying, yeah, this is actually the best solution that you need to go with?
Yeah, that's a good question. Most homeowners are going to do that. They're going to pull out a calculator and say, okay, so $9,000 divided by, here's my electric bill. It's going to take me 10 years to recoup that money. Man, the federal government, there's a lot of incentive programs in our space. So a lot of people, say, oh, you're in the home improvement industry. And I correct them no, we're in the home performance industry. So we kind of live and breathe around HVAC, solar, insulation. That's kind of the home performance industry. So anything that will improve the efficiency of how a home consumes energy, that's kind of where we live and breathe. So with the federal government, there is right now for 2023, there's up to a $1,200 tax credit when you upgrade the insulation in your house. So it's just a simple IRS form you fill out when you file your taxes, and you get up to a $1,200 credit right now. And the Inflation Reduction Act, they just passed for 2024. They're increasing that to $3,600. So starting January 1, it's a $3,600 tax credit. So if it's a lot more money going to incentivize homeowners to do this. There's also, I don't want to get in the weeds in it, but there's another program for lower income areas. So we can go into like a HUD zoned area. Mm-hmm. And there's federal grants to help those homeowners upgrade their insulation. So the federal government is really on board with reducing energy consumption, so that's kind of where we live and breathe, and we leverage that in our sales process.
Makes a lot of sense. Talk to us a little bit about kind of your setup, from like how many trucks and vans you have, technicians in the field, what your kind of internal operation looks like. Average ticket price. I mean, I'm curious, just being in the home services space, kind of what it looks like compared to not just what we do in junk removal, but I've interviewed a lot of other folks, maybe in like window cleaning, gutter cleaning, power washing, right? Just curious. We're all in home services, but I talked about it on a recent episode that I did with somebody else, just about kind of the variation of, numbers that you can see based on the offering. If you talk about power washing, for example, they may come in at $400 or $500 an average ticket, right? Come in, I can just do a basic clean outside. HVAC, outside of like the regular maintenance that you pay for, if you're ever going to upgrade or replace a condenser unit or whatever, those like 10, 15, 20 grand projects, huge delta. So I'm just curious, for your business, kind of what does it look like in terms of like number of trucks that you have in your market, technicians, what your average ticket price is, like those sort of things?
Yeah, so a typical location is going to be, usually a one truck operation starting out, right? So we're in the process of adding a third truck at our flagship location, which is in Los Angeles. We service most of the north part of LA County. That's kind of our home base. So we've got a team on the ground out there running that location, with getting ready to add a third truck in first quarter. So I would say it's a high revenue business. Like you mentioned, power washing, average ticket, couple $100, right? Yeah. So with us, it's northward of $4,000 is kind of an average ticket for us. And that's a 1 day job for us. Yeah. We're in and out in a day typically. Awesome. So not a lot of callbacks or having to go back on a second trip.
Yeah. And are there materials involved that you handle as part of that fee, or is that another line item the customer pays for?
Are you talking about the job cost, the total?
Yeah. Like, so you've got, if I'm going to pay you $4,000 to do something, does that include everything? Like, obviously the labor is in that fee, but like,
that's turnkey. Yeah. That's a turnkey solution for the homeowner.
Awesome. What are the expansion goals for you? So you're in LA. Do you want to just continue to blanket canvas California? Do you want to expand eastward? What does that look like as a franchisor?
Well, so we're launching an Austin, Texas franchise location right now. He'll be up and running on January 22nd. Okay. So we've got a gentleman down there that bought the entire city, 4 territories. Wow. So he's going through training right now, looking at a January launch, and we've got another probably 3 or 4 locations coming online around the same time, probably January, February in the pipeline. Yeah. So, with insulation, it's not a seasonal business, man. I mean, it works in the northern states. It works in the southern states. So we're targeting all the major cities, man. I mean, we'd like to get someone in Dallas. That's one of our big markets that we're targeting right now. Atlanta, Boston's a great market for insulation. Anywhere where there's a big city, a lot of older homes, that's kind of what we're targeting. Growth rate, we want to, this time next year, if we were to jump on this again in a year, Davis, we'd like to be at 12 franchise partners. So we're looking to add 1 a month.
Okay. That's interesting. It's going to be one of my questions. So what's your go-to-market strategy, Dustin, to acquire those leads, work them? Like, do you have Are you involved in the broker networks? Do you have a franchise sales organization you're teamed up with? And then on the internal side, do you have a franchise development team that takes those leads, vets them, works them through the process to even get to a place of potentially offering a territory to one of these candidates?
Yeah, so I've got a unique background. I was a general contractor here in Nashville for about 7 years. Retired Army before
Okay.
that. I fell into franchise development about 4 years ago with a brand called ChemDry, which is a carpet cleaning
Oh yeah.
franchise. Really big carpet cleaning franchise, 3,000 locations in like 60 countries. Huge brand. So I did franchise
Yes.
development for a few years for that brand, and then we were actually acquired by Belfour Franchise Group, which is a big
Okay.
franchise conglomerate. They have 13 brands, about 5,000 territories, um, all home services. So
Yeah.
I did development for a brand called the Patch Boys, which is a drywall repair franchise. That
Okay.
brand's sitting at about 300 units right now. So I have a unique background of in the home service space as a contractor, and then also on the backside of on FranDev doing franchise development. So just
Hmm.
having those relationships with consultants, have a good relationship with a couple different franchise consultant networks. Lean on those
Yeah.
relationships quite a bit in the FranDev spot.
Awesome. And so I'm curious, just organically, where do you guys spend your time and your resources, Dustin? Is it just a highly optimized website that captures leads for folks out there actively looking for, career changes or additional franchises they can get involved in, and they find Insulation Commandos? Do you, work to build out landing pages? Do you have, folks that are showing up in the Facebook groups and actively outbound prospecting, those types of people? I'm sure it's probably all over the board a little bit, but do you hone in on any of those strategies in one particular area or more than the others?
Honestly, man, it's mostly consultants, mostly brokers.
Yeah.
So just
Okay.
having those relationships, and it's basically there's a small group of brokers that know exactly what we're looking for, as far as like their background, their net worth, their mentality,
Yeah.
like what's the profile that we're looking for, and they're finding those people for us, so that's, in
Hmm.
my opinion, if you're going to grow a brand the right way, it's all about working with brokers that know your business and kind of what the profile is you need. So that's,
Yeah.
in my
Are
opinion,
you
the most
finding more?
efficient way to do it.
Totally. I couldn't agree more. Are you finding success with one type of profile for your specific business over the other? Right. I know that a lot of consultants find, you know, uh, corporate refugees looking to get into business ownership, but for Insulation Commandos, specifically, what type of individual tends to work out well for you in terms of awarding a franchisee, and ones that go on to be successful in it?
Just, it's just like anything else, man. Just go getters, people that are wanting to grow a business. Steven, our franchise
Yeah.
partner in Austin, he, his goal is, he wants to do $5 million in sales with 5 trucks, and he wants to
Wow.
expand into Houston. So he's
Hmm.
ambitious, and he's got goals. So I think
Yeah.
that's the biggest piece of it, is having a partner that's in a market that wants to grow and scale.
Yeah. Interesting. Do you guys do commercial work much, or is it mainly residential?
We do a little bit of commercial work, a lot of soundproofing. So we'll go into an
Okay.
office space and soundproof an office space. Maybe if there's a warehouse with an adjoining office, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Warehouses, mostly residential though.
Okay.
We don't do much marketing. A lot of referrals from HVAC contractors.
Hmm.
That's a big part of our business, is knowing the HVAC contractors in the market and getting those referrals.
Interesting. Interesting. Okay. Um, in terms of just back up on your background a little bit, Dustin, and I know you mentioned, veteran, you were a GC there in Nashville, you were involved in FranDev, but how did you get involved with like just the franchising space in general? And I guess maybe what did you know or not know about it prior to getting into it that attracted you to it?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a cool story. So So there's a guy. Have you ever heard of Rolling Suds? It's a power
Yeah,
washing
Aaron
franchise.
Harper.
Yeah, Aaron.
Yeah,
So he's crushing it, right? So Aaron
yeah.
and I actually worked together at AT&T for a few
Okay.
years, and
Oh
so
wow.
we
Okay.
became. I've known him for about 11, 12 years at this point. So
Yeah.
we became pretty close. And anyway, he left AT&T to get into franchise development with ChemDry, and
Yep.
shortly after that, he called me up. I was already running my business, my construction business, and and he called me up one day and it's like, hey, you wanna come do franchise development? And I was like, Aaron, what's a franchise? And so he basically
Yeah.
just recruited me in, and he talked me into winding up my business and leaving that and coming in to the unknown and learning franchise development. And so I kind of jumped
That's
off a
awesome.
cliff to get into it. About it's been what, 4.5 years now. So I had no
Yeah.
background in it other than Aaron was my only connection in the space, and I did really well with ChemDry, and they gave me another brand to develop and another brand to develop, and after getting to the third brand, I was like, okay, I think I can do this on my own, and that's how
Mhm.
most things are. Once you kind of
Yeah.
figure out the path, uh, took the next
Yeah.
step
I think
as
what's
a
in,
franchise owner.
Yeah, I think what's most tough for us as a new franchisor and not with your background in Fran Dev is like knowing the capital that it's going to take to be successful, but
Right.
also as you grow and you bring on new franchisees, like what is the like we know there's infrastructure that's needed. There's a Fran Dev team that's needed. There's field operations folks that you need. There's back office admin folks that you need. You need front lines people doing outbound sales. You need a call center, like we know all that, but I think what trips me up mentally is just not knowing like when you need to bring on those individuals, right? Because I think it's true and everybody knows, or most folks know, that getting in as a franchisor is actually very capital intensive. Like it's very expensive and you're playing a long game.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit, Dustin, about your process? Like, did you show up to Insulation Commandos with a team and an infrastructure already in place, or did you kind of build the plane as you were taking off?
Yeah, so no, we planned for around a year before
Yeah.
launching the franchise. I've
Okay.
got a really good friend of mine. His name's Todd Morelli. Known him for 20 years. We were in the army together. We invaded Iraq together in 2003. Really good buddy of mine. Um, he's in Los Angeles, and he's actually running our flagship location in LA. So his background is he's a West Point officer, infantry guy, ranger, um, really big on systems and processes. So he's the
Mm,
guy boots on the ground in LA running our flagship location. So he oversees the training program, the hands-on training program. So when our franchise partners go out to LA for the hands-on portion of training, they're coming into our corporate team and working with Todd and seeing what right looks like. So I've got a good team on the backside on the support. So we have
mm,
Todd Morelli, who's running the flagship location. Mike Malloy, he's our chief sales officer. Mike's background
okay.
is home services. So Mike owns an HVAC business in LA that's doing about 13 million a year. He owns a solar business in LA that's doing about 6 million a year. And then he's a partner in the insulation business in LA too. So his background is also home performance industry. So those two gentlemen out there, they're kind of boots on the ground. So we lean on them for technical training and support, and that sort of thing. And then we have a
Mm,
brand president. His name's Brock Adams. Um, Known Brock for at least 10 years now. He was my boss at AT&T for a while. He knows Aaron too. So Brock's background is
mm,
running a big multi-unit operation. So he was running a big market for AT&T, 4 states wide, running a big operation. So
wow.
his background is just running a big multi-unit operation. He's a psychologist background. sales guy. He's big about driving revenue and tracking KPIs. He's a numbers guy. So he's our brand president. So he oversees franchisee support, onboarding, just helping them track their KPIs, their P&Ls, all that sort of stuff. And then there's one other guy that we've got on our support team. His name's Dan Antonelli. You ever heard of Kick Charge Creative out of New Jersey? It's a branding company.
I can't see that.
No?
I
you
can't
ever heard
say
of
that I
Tommy
have, but the
Mello?
name
You probably
Dan.
seen Tommy Mello.
Yes. Yeah, Tommy Mello, yeah.
Garage. Yeah, so
Yes.
so Dan Antonelli did the rebrand for Tommy Mello's business for A1. So he did all the branding for A1.
Okay.
He's a partner.
Interesting.
He did our logo, or all of our branding, our truck wraps, all that sort of stuff. So we've got, we're plugged in with his company, Kick Charge Creative, and they kind of handle all of our branding. So that's kind of our team that we put together before we launched this.
Yeah, interesting. So it sounds like you came into it with and maybe at the time it wasn't completely built out like on paper, but you had folks that you trust and knew, and you knew at some point you were going to bring them into the fold, which is interesting. And we're going to wrap it up here kind of in the next 5 to 10 minutes, Dustin, but on the consumer sales side, we talk about this a lot within home service, at least within our niche with junk removal. Like, you can beat a lot of the competition just by doing what we call the easy stuff, right? And doing it all the time, like answer the phone, be responsive,
it's
show
crazy.
up in uniform, let them know you're on the way. What is it? Do you see kind of the same on your side, like with your competition, just, people failing because they don't answer their phone or they don't get a quote back within a timely manner? Like, what does that look like in the insulation world?
Yeah, man, that's spot on. People ask when I get a couple calls in with people, they're like, Dustin, what's the differentiator, with Insulation Commandos? And honestly, man, we're not reinventing the wheel. It's really just, it's not a very sophisticated space with our competition. Speed to lead is very important for us. So we have a call center based out of Utah. Their average contact is, I think, 13 seconds is average, speed to lead. Lead comes in, they're calling it within 13 seconds. So I think that the last time I checked, the average for insulation was 300 minutes. So what was it, 5 hours was like the average response time for an insulation contractor, according to Angie.
Yeah.
So speed to lead is really important. We're leveraging technology. You've probably heard of Service Titan. We've got our own custom version of Service Titan set up. So just automating as much of the business as we can, and then being plugged in with good marketing agencies that are going to, put jobs on the schedule for us.
Yeah.
So, like I said, we're not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah. I was going to say, Dustin, it's interesting. The software system, is that like a dispatch tool for all of your field techs to go by day in and day out? Like, they see the schedule, the customer info, what they're doing, process payments in there, notes.
Yeah, most people have heard of Jobber. Jobber is one that most people have heard of.
Yeah.
So Service Titan is Jobber on steroids. So a lot more integrations with it. You're probably familiar with tracking numbers, putting tracking numbers on all of your marketing. Yeah, I mean, you have a tech background, right?
Yeah. So are you using Service Titan? I thought you said you had built your own. Oh, gotcha.
No, we
familiar with Service.
But we basically, Service Titan's mainly for HVAC, plumbing, electrical.
Yeah.
So there's not very many insulation contractors using Service Titan. So we kind of had to hire they had to build out a custom version of it for us.
Got it.
Yeah, we're plugged in with Service Titan. It does.
Good deal.
It does all of our, estimates, invoicing, dispatch, route management, payroll, clocking in and out, checklists for the technicians, inventory management. It's got a lot of data, a lot of reporting on the marketing side too. So we can track ROI on different zones, different lead sources. So we're data driven.
Yeah, totally. Service Titan's a great system. Let's get to the end of it here, Dustin, but we could do another 5 episodes probably going down rabbit holes. But when you guys are talking about when you guys have an initial call with a franchisee, like, and I know you mentioned a lot of these come by way of consultants, so they've probably done a decent amount of that legwork up front. But like, is there a trend with those initial calls that you see of like franchisees tend to ask these questions more so than not, or this always bubbles up in the conversation because they don't know this about the franchising world or whatever the case may be? Has anything come to mind with like just that initial call that you guys tend to have with those candidates of like, I can guarantee you we're going to talk about this on that call?
Yeah, it's funny, man. I'm not a sales guy, so when I get on on an initial call with someone, usually they're expecting to be sold. That's the last 5 calls they
Yeah.
were on. There was somebody trying to sell them a franchise, so they'll get on there and their guards up because they think they're about to be sold. And it's not really like that. My sales process isn't really like that. It's more of I'm going to get to know you. You're going to get to know me. You're going to get to know my team, and if we're a good fit, it'll work out. So that's I think that kind of shocks them in the first call, because it's super important to have the right franchise partners, man. I mean, everybody's got to have the same goal in mind and be running in the same direction for it to work. So just the first call is very important with just making sure they're the right. Do you want to go through this process, all these other calls with this person? Are they a good fit? You want to identify that on the first call.
For sure. For sure. Well, I appreciate the time, Dustin. We always like to end these episodes with, hey, if you could go back to your younger self, whenever that was, a year ago, 5, 10, 20 years ago, and tell your younger self anything, what would that be as it relates to what you're doing now today with Insulation Commandos?
Man, that's a tough one. I don't think I would have changed anything. I think trials and tribulations, it kind of brings you to where you're at now, and experiences and everything just kind of comes together with all of your experiences. So I don't really have anything I would go back and change.
Yeah. I tend to be the same way, man. It's just life is what it is, and your journey is your, it's your book. You can go back and review kind of how things went and maybe know better for next time. But to try to change anything would just be kind of a waste of time, of course. But man, Dustin, appreciate you giving us some insight into what you're doing at Insulation Commandos. If you want folks to find you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you or your company?
For me, LinkedIn's probably the best spot. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. Just Dustin Ingle. For the brand, I mean, we're on social media. On the franchise side, we've got Insulation Commandos franchise.com. If you want to check that out, send us a request form there. If you want to find out what markets we're looking at, that's probably the best way to get us.
Awesome. Well, Dustin, I appreciate it. Good luck to you guys the rest of the way. I'd love to keep in touch, just selfishly from what we're doing on the franchisor side, and I'm sure we'll be in touch again. But if there's anything we can ever do for you here, let us know. And sounds like you're off to the races. So again, good luck the rest of the way. We appreciate the time.
Thanks, Davis.